An MLK Day afternoon game, and the Bucks just took a half to get going against the Indiana Pacers. Again, it was not a four-quarter performance from the Bucks. There was no Giannis also in this game, but a couple of old wily vets came in and some different rotations, and the Bucks were able to play some defense in the second half and beat the Pacers. We also got our first real update from Khris Middleton today from our friend Eric Name, so we can talk about Chris. At least the Bucks won. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. My name is Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my other work over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of BrewHoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. And we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first watch or first listen of every weekday. And it's my fault we're not doing the pod straight after the game today. I had some other work stuff. These early Arvo games aren't always the best time slot for me. But we're here doing the post-game show now, and the Bucks won. And I said to Frank, I actually saw the score of this game before I watched it, which I don't love. I don't love when that's the case. It takes away all the suspense. But in this case, it might have been better, Frank, because at halftime, you give up 76 to the Indiana Pacers. TJ McConnell's out there looking like prime Allen Iverson. Can't be stopped at the rim. He's knocking down threes. He had a career high in the first half, and the Bucks just did not look like they were going to slow down this Pacers team, who we can say the Bucks didn't have Giannis and Middleton and Joe Ingles. They didn't have Tyrese Halliburton either. And again, the Bucks were able to pull it out, but it is a little bit of a continuation of what we've seen in the last few weeks where they can't get a four-quarter performance in.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I watched the game live, I was actually watching Twitter during this game, off and on. I was tempted to, tweet something snarky at some point. In like the third quarter when it just felt like, they would get like within 6 or 8 and then it would get back out to 10, right? It just felt like there was one of those kind of hump games where it's so hard to get over the hump. And then you worry that, okay, to actually do that, you're going to have to expend all this energy. And then again, did you trust the Bucks to actually string together like multiple stops and for the Pacers to stop hitting threes? Normally I would say, yeah, I don't think the Pacers are going to shoot, what were they, 12 for 22 to start or something like that, 55%. Normally it's like, oh, well, they can't be that hot for that long. But, with the way things have been going, just, we get these like the Raptor game where nobody can make anything. And then we get these other games. Like, I just keep thinking about this Charlotte game, like literally Charlotte, this like team that's even worse than the Pacers. Although you could argue with LaMelo and no Halliburton, maybe that's it's a more talented team. But bottom line, like, did I trust this version of the Bucks to come back and actually close this one out? Pretty touch and go. And again, it's just hard because every time they do this, like especially with, again, I don't know how much the Twitter fan base is reflective of like the broader fan base, but you get just this cascade of angst over, again, like role players who are in these spots where like, obviously they're being asked to do more, but I thought it was notable. Josh Oppenheimer, who I think Marcus Johnson or Lisa mentioned on the broadcast, had the scout. He was the guy that had the advanced scout on this game. So he was, kind of more prominent, let's just say. He was like giving instructions at the midcourt. He was very involved in this game. And he gave the halftime interview to Zora Stevenson. And that was about as like pissed off as you're going to see an assistant coach in a halftime interview look. I think the word pride was mentioned twice, I think. Basically just like guys just need to like, basically it was like, get your shit together, Bucks, like was essentially the messaging, and taking pride in getting stops and playing defense, which, what was it, 76 points allowed in the first half. And again, like, when teams score 76, of course, like there's good shot making involved in that, but at bottom line, it's like TJ McConnell, like they kind of just dared them all have to shoot threes, which I'll say this, like, Oppenheimer also made it seem like, they were letting, a good 3-point shooter, get off easy looks. And it's like TJ McConnell, like that's sort of been the scouting report on him, is that, you go under screens and you kind of dare him a little bit to shoot, which is a very Bucks thing to do. But he was hitting everything. Miles Turner was hitting everything. And McConnell was also like, getting in the paint, getting to his spots. And it didn't really matter who was on him. I mean, Jrue Holiday had times where he couldn't stop him. And then like near the end of the second quarter, AJ Green is having to defend him. And like he scored on AJ Green twice in a row. It's like, okay, why is it like the worst defender on the roster having to guard the guy that's got, a career high halftime? So it was a very, it was a long day. You see the final score and you're like, oh, 132, 119, Bucks break out of their offensive doldrums. And I think that's, I haven't mentioned Jrue Holiday yet. I think we got to get to Jrue Holiday, because on a day when you actually win a game without Giannis, without Khris, as per usual, like the usual caveats, those guys just don't play basketball games anymore. Huge shout out to Jrue Holiday. He was awesome in this game. He was the guy that closed out the Pacers. He was the guy that was helping the Bucks stay in the game when, again, they were sort of struggling to keep it within touching distance. And I think it's 3 straight double-doubles. Season high 35 points. Had the step back going. Was just bulldozing little Pacer defenders getting to the rim. He was awesome. And, a lot of the guys that we've been, kind of just struggling with, who have not shot the ball, have not scored effectively this year. I mean, you scored 132 and you don't do that without getting contributions from a bunch of guys. And certainly offensively, at least there was, a number of encouraging performances. But I thought defensively as well, guys that maybe didn't put up, big scoring numbers. George Hill, Wes Matthews came in and played a key role in kind of flipping the script on that game in the second half. And so, again, it's like, how outraged can you get about a game when they win and you're not playing with 2 of your best 3 players, including, your MVP candidate? It's like kind of hard to look at it and say, like, use this as like the kind of existential litmus test on the franchise. But again, just given the way things have been going, given the frustrations, which I certainly get, and I was feeling it, especially through that first half, and the lack of urgency that you felt with the team, especially on defense. Normally frustrated, but by the same token, you hope that, again, if we're just, dare I say, days away, maybe, who knows, maybe Giannis is going to play basketball at some point this week. Maybe Khris Middleton maybe might play basketball in the next week. Like I said on ESPN, they suggested Saturday against Cleveland. I don't know. I feel like the boy who cried wolf, even alluding to that. But, they really needed this win, because if you lose this game, 3rd straight loss, going with into Toronto tomorrow, when I'm assuming Giannis isn't going to play, but maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe they were saving him for the tougher game of the back-to-back. That wouldn't be a great place to be. And, you'd be kind of steamrolling towards the 5th spot, it seems, in the East if you lose this game and be staring at another loss tomorrow night. So, yeah, again, maybe not the prettiest win in terms of consistency, but very necessary, and certainly some positives to take from it, starting with Jrue Holiday.
Yeah, last 5 games now, and you talk about the shooting because it got overshadowed a little bit because the Bucks lost those 2 games in Miami. But the last 5 games, the Bucks are actually 5th in the league for 3-point percentage. They're up over 40%. They're averaging 20.2 makes per game over those 5 games and getting up 50 a game. So we've discussed it when Giannis goes out. We've seen historically the 3-point attempts really ramp up. And we did see a fair bit of that, but they shot the ball well, about 50% tonight, which overcame the Pacers at 47%. And we've said this with Jrue Holiday before. He does so much for this team. When you got Giannis there, you got Khris there. He doesn't need to be a 30-point scorer, but the Bucks have needed it a little bit more this season, and this last little stretch, he's been pretty good. But you mentioned the rotation, and it's interesting because even after the game, I tried to scroll through Twitter and see what some of the reactions were. And there was still some anger about different rotation things that happened, namely Marjon Beauchamp. So I want to get into that a bit because the Wes Matthews, dusting off the Wes Matthews old rotation minutes there today was at least interesting. He only played 6, but we'll talk about that after we talk about Rocket Money. And if your New Year goal is to manage your budget better and save money, you need Rocket Money, and that's me, because Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. Now, I'm not a big money spender. I would be what people would describe as a tight ass. I'm not going out there splashing cash. I'm just I like to be careful about the way I spend my money, which is why I've still got this 2018 iPhone with it still has a button on it, which I get a lot of flack for. So I'm not throwing money away, but I got this humongous tax bill recently, which is just painful to even think about. And after I did that, I'm like, well, where am I spending money that I don't need to? Let's try and save some cash here. And I found that I just had 1 million subscriptions that I'm not using. And really, I'm just wasting $20-$30 a month. And that's what Rocket Money can do. It makes canceling subscriptions as easy as a click of a button. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, saving the average person up to $720 a year. So stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. Well, we know Frank looks like he's got up.
Venue change.
Yes, he's changed location. I think he's going.
By the way, people watching on video here, like I'm wearing a hat, which I don't do I like never do it on the pod, and because my thing is mirrored, I keep like trying to adjust it and make it straight, but it's always the reverse, and my brain just like can't process that I have to adjust it in the reverse side. So I just look like, well, even more of a loser than I usually do with I cannot wear a hat the way Kane Pittman wears a hat, but my hair got all messed up today wearing this Brewers hat. So I'm wearing this is also like the lamest Brewers hat. It's the old like Milwaukee wheat Miller. Basically it's the Miller logo, which is just has always been the lamest logo. But anyway, whatever. You're not here for our faces. Maybe for Kane's face, but I don't think anybody's coming for my face. But yeah, this is the struggle is real right now. But I'm eating a little Reese's miniature here to.
Well, as we know, you got to eat on the podcast, Frank. You got to have your sustenance to get through the next 25 minutes or so of podcasting. Rotation stuff. I saw something when I said I was scrolling through Twitter. I saw something funny, right? Someone tweeted, why aren't the Bucks playing Marjon Beauchamp? And he had a DMP coach's decision today. Now, of course, the Bucks play tomorrow, so who knows, whether he'll get minutes tomorrow. But I saw a Bucks fan comment back, and they were like, yeah, Bud decided he wanted to win games, and Beauchamp was no good against Miami. Now,
he was terrible. He was terrible in Miami. He was 0 for 7 with 0 points in 26 minutes over 2 games. It was not great.
No, it was not a great stretch. Now, I've been someone who's been advocating for the idea that he is one of the high upside guys. I think we've watched the Bucks, and certainly in my opinion, we've seen that athletically, this team is really challenged. And even we saw some stretches today where the Pacers were able to get out in transition. Now, you might say that's just poor defense. Maybe that was the case. But we've seen other teams, whether it's Houston Rockets, some of these younger teams that just really make the Bucks look old and slow. So I've been saying, well, just let Marjon play through these mistakes, play him every single night, and at least find out whether you've got something. He's had some good moments. Last couple of games weren't his best. Now, all of a sudden, Jordan Wara is getting some minutes, and I see then the Twitter fans are saying, well, this is a showcase. He's going to be put in a trade. He's starting to make some buckets. And he did today, as he did in that first Miami game. He's had a couple of good moments here. But ultimately, back to that comment about, well, the Bucks wanted to win games. We always talk about this, Frank. Why do the veterans get minutes when the Bucks are in trouble or when Bud needs to rely on people? Because he can put Wesley Matthews in, who hasn't played for 2.5 weeks. And you could tell he looked like a guy that hadn't played in 2.5 weeks. He was sprinting up and down the floor everywhere. He was barking instructions on defense. And he checked in at the halfway mark of the third quarter, and the Bucks were still trailing, I think, 90-78 at the time. It was still a double-digit deficit. And there's no question, in my opinion, that he made an impact. His first defensive possession, he was actually able to stop TJ McConnell for his first miss of the entire game. And I just thought Wesley Matthews had an impact. And it comes back to the old question. Do I think that Wesley Matthews is all of a sudden going to be some difference maker in a championship? No, but we did see with the organization, maybe the pride that Oppenheimer was talking about between Wesley Matthews and George Hill, the Bucks got reliable, good minutes tonight from vets. We've theorized that perhaps they're just putting these guys on ice to save their bodies a little bit. But it was interesting that Bud went to that tonight when clearly the coaching staff was pretty frustrated with what they saw in the first half.
Well, I mean, and I think if you're mad about Beauchamp not playing, like I would say, well, then it was AJ Green and Jordan Wara whose minutes probably should have been cut. I mean, West played 6 minutes. Okay, it's not like he
that's
played
right.
like a huge number of minutes or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, the amount of leash he's given AJ Green has been the most interesting to me, because AJ Green can't, I mean, first off, you wouldn't want him playing in the playoffs because he can't defend anybody, right? I mean, he's just too physically, limited. And again, I think he understands how to play defense much better than Marjan does. Like Marjan makes pretty obvious mistakes that even someone like me kind of sees and is like, oof, yeah, he went the wrong way, or that wasn't supposed to be a switch, or man, he just got stuck on that screen. Like he's not good at getting over screens. AJ Green kind of fight. I mean, he's again, it's very stereotypical, white guy try hard shit basically. But he does. I mean, he's generally especially in one-on-one defense, his errors are because he's just never going to be able to do that, not because he's just making the wrong read or didn't know where he was supposed to be. So to me though, that's kind of what are you getting from these AJ Green minutes, right? I think you can say, well, when you need to juice the offense a little bit, obviously Green's shooting, I mean, arguably the best spot up shooter on the team, right? I mean, statistically, right? He's up over 40%. I mean, that's literally the only thing he does. Obviously, he can't dribble, can't pass, can't defend. So there's no there's nobody in
at
the
an NBA
rotation.
Level, just to
clarify.
Yeah.
I mean,
not that we need to clarify, but this isn't an all-out attack on young.
But he's
AJ.
a great shooter. And I think to his credit, the thing that I was just not, and again, the reason why I also just I don't think there's some big upside here. But I give him credit. I mean, the dude can come in and play limited minutes and knock down threes. And a lot of guys can't do that, right? A lot of guys who are very good college shooters, they need the ball in their hands. They need to get a feel, a rhythm of the game. They can't play 10 minutes, take, 5 shots and hit 3 threes or whatever it might be. And he's been up over 40% from 3 for most of the season. I'm not sure where he is right now, but I mean, credit to him. I mean, he's done probably about as well as he could, but it's a little weird. I don't know if it's some sort of oh, Marjan, go watch what AJ does. He's in the right spots. You'll take learn from the veteran rookie guy who played 4 years in college. I don't know if that's kind of the thing that's going on, because it's you're not going to trade AJ Green for him. He's a 2-way contract. You're not going to trade him in some package sweetener or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is. He's not eligible to play in the playoffs. I don't know what you're kind of building towards here with AJ Green getting minutes over Beauchamp. And with Wara, I mean, I thought we had moved past, Marjan Beauchamp getting stuck behind Jordan Wara, but then you see how tentative, Marjan stunk it up in Miami. And I mean, that's okay. So if you want to know why he didn't play, it's because he stunk in Miami. And, Jordan Wara actually got some buckets in that last game. Now, do I enjoy watching Jordan Wara? No. Even when Jordan Wara is good, I feel I don't enjoy watching him play. It just always feels like it's on the knife edge of disaster. And then you just hope that some off balance, shots go in. And thankfully in those last 2 games they have, for his sake, especially today, considering it helped them actually win a basketball game. So credit to Jordan Wara, but I don't know. I mean, I still been thinking about just the fact that they gave him 2 years on his contract. It's you shouldn't have there shouldn't be a lot of risk in a 2-year deal that's barely above the minimum. But I mean, they really need him to actually have some good games here if he's going to resuscitate his value above negative asset levels, right? You want to be able to throw him into a trade if you need to help, again, kind of increase the amount of salary you can take back, without somebody looking at the trade and being Jordan, I don't want to pay that guy $2 million the next 2 years, but last few months, that's kind of been where, I mean, he's barely snuck over 52% true shooting. His usage is actually the same as Beauchamp's, which is kind of interesting, because you think of Wara as being a guy that's super trigger happy, and Beauchamp being a lot more kind of measured role playerish, but their usage is actually the exact same. So yeah, I mean, this stuff is so cyclical. Part of me is I don't know, there's almost no point in trying to make heads or tails of why Bud is riding this guy a little bit more versus this guy a little bit less, especially when, a day like this where you're not only missing Khris and Giannis, but Ingles is out too. They needed dudes, and I think it kind of sucks that Marjan isn't playing over, especially an AJ Green type guy who to me doesn't have a long-term future in Milwaukee, period. And because of his defensive issues, it's not like he's it's not like he's dramatically helping you. It's the bar should be pretty low for Marjan to clear AJ Green. But we'll see. I mean, hopefully he played well in Toronto the last time he was there in that first game when no one could make a shot. He actually came in and scored 8 points in the first quarter, or first 15 minutes a game or so. So hopefully we start to see him again. Again, we can kind of knee-jerk react to guys playing more one day or another. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I understand why, like, what is the logic of Bud's use of Wes Matthews? I have no idea, right? Like, is he saving him for the stretch run? Does he intend to use him at all in the playoffs? I have no idea. No idea. I don't know at all. I know I certainly trust Wes more than most dudes on this roster, especially the like rotation, like bench guys, in terms of like, a hypothetical, like, can you throw him out there against Boston? We have a lot of guys that we know just like flat out can't play because they can't defend against a team like the Celtics. And again, can Wes score? He randomly had that shot. He took one shot today and he made it, which was kind of cool. But like obviously he's not going to be an efficient, high efficiency scorer or anything like that. So long story short, I don't know who's going to play night to night. I don't know if Bud knows night to night. I hope that, again, I figured Wes wouldn't play every game once Joe Ingles came back, but I didn't think it would be like, not play for like 2 weeks type of thing, especially given the kind of the ongoing injuries they've had. So that part surprised me a little bit, but again, I don't know. I mean, and part of me is like, I don't know that much about what Wes has left because we haven't really seen him play much. And I think the big reason you have Wes is, again, he's a guy that you have to play with Jrue and Giannis and Khris, because in those situations he can just like switch defensively and the ball's never going to be in his hand really, right? Like maybe he's going to take some spot up shots, but you're not expecting him to really have to carry any offensive burden. And obviously when those guys are out, that's part of what you're worried about, is him having to like, dribble and do stuff. So I don't know, guys. I don't know, Kane. I don't know what to make of it. We're halfway through the season. There's still a fair bit of time left. And I think you still may need a guy like Wes come playoff time. So if they want to measure his minutes, but keep him at least vaguely fresh, that's fine with me. But I don't know. Some of the other stuff, AJ Green, Wara, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in, tomorrow, much less in a week.
And I do think, just quickly on AJ Green, like some of it, I think, has just been reward for actually being able to knock down shots, because we saw in that stretch when he first came into play, as you pointed to, the Bucks literally could not hit a shot any given night. And it's like, hey, yeah, this guy might have some deficiencies defensively, but he's actually capable of knocking down a three. Now, the Bucks are in a nice stretch at the moment, and we hope that continues. But as you pointed to, they have to go back to Toronto tomorrow or today. I hope it's a little bit of a different game to last time, although then again, the Bucks won, so maybe not. Let's talk about Khris Middleton next. We got an update. Eric Name wrote a story over at The Athletic. After we talk about betonline.net, which is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. I was just watching the Dallas Cowboys put an end to Tom Brady's season. So if you think the Cowboys are going to roll through, I don't know. I think that's blasphemous if you're a Packers fan. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, the NFL playoffs are rolling on. Packers fans had a great day the other day when the Vikings lost. So it's not all bad. But get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season. That's done. Basketball and the Basketball World Cup is coming up as well. So if you think Australia can do some big things like I do, go to betonline.net. And if you love sports, podcasts and news and info, it's all there at betonline.net. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. We're going to stop talking about college bowl season. I've only done the BetOnline ad approximately 1,500 times in my life, so I probably shouldn't have to read it off the sheet. But anyway, shout out to BetOnline. Shout out to Khris Middleton as well, and shout out to Eric Name, Frank. Down in Miami, got the chance to hang out with Khris Middleton and ask some questions that we've probably all been seeking answers for. What is going on? Why is this knee so sore? Why has it been sore for the last month after he returned? So essentially, and you can add your thoughts to this, but essentially he's been having swelling in his knee, which has been seemingly problematic for many years, actually. But obviously he had that knee injury in the playoffs last year. I don't think that this was all that clear, actually, because Khris said, yeah, maybe I'll be back next week, but I don't want to say I'll be back next week, because if I'm not back next week, then I'll look stupid for saying that I'm back next week. So I ultimately left this story a little bit confused, but it did give a bit of an insight into the knee injury, the wrist stuff that he went through as well. And ultimately, he's just had a rough stretch here. But he did say, I know I might not always look like I want to get back and play, but I'm desperate to play because playing games of basketball is more fun than doing rehab. What did you take from this story? You're on mute. Apologies.
I might as well have just kept me on mute because I don't really know what to make of that story. So one clarifying point. So to the extent that Middleton has right knee soreness, and again, this is like, the blisters thing got referenced again in this. We know he had a non-COVID illness. I don't know. Like as I mentioned, the ESPN broadcast reference maybe playing next Wednesday in Cleveland or next Saturday in Cleveland. I think it's Saturday. Lots of time to get hangnail or something. I have no idea, right? At this point, like literally anything. So I don't know. I mean, it sucks for him, right? Obviously, his incentive is to play and be good and, earn a new contract, help the Milwaukee Bucks win a championship, play with the guys that he's, played with for so many seasons, principally Giannis. So I don't really know what to make of it. The right knee is the one that he injured in college. And I think the thing that they were alluding to, which I think was probably that, what Eric that really has not gotten talked about, which is that just basically kind of he manages that right knee. It's been just sort of an ongoing thing, which we really have. It hasn't been as prominent as like Giannis. Giannis is like it's been very clear. Like every year he misses games with his knees being just kind of things flaring out. I mean, this has been going on for 6 years or something like that. First it was always like the right knee it was called right knee soreness. After the injury against Atlanta, it's typically like left knee soreness is referenced. It's probably both of them, I'm guessing. And so I think Khris was just basically saying like, yeah, I mean, normally it's my right knee, but I manage it. And, if it's during the off season, like nobody cares because it's the off season, but because of the ramp up and everything like that, that's been part of his problem. I don't know. It doesn't seem like anybody thinks this is like some serious thing that, is going to be like a Brook Lopez where, next week they decide, oh, need surgery, right?
Yeah.
Out for 3 months. Bud has sort of been dismissive of it being serious. Even Bud, who's never says anything about anything, has seemingly been dismissive of it being serious. But, it's been a month, right? Roughly a month, I think, since we've seen Khris Middleton play basketball. So at this point, like we've, I think, exhausted everything we can say about what may or may not be happening. Everybody wants to see the guy play basketball, and I'm sure he does too. So until it happens, we're just going to keep spinning our wheels. The plus side obviously is, as Eric referenced in the story, is that they've gotten him into a number of 5-on-5 practices, including with the Bucks, and also bringing some of the herd guys down. By the way, nice little vacation, right? It's like, oh yeah, fly down to Miami, get some games in.
You brought that up, and when you said it, I was like, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Khris is in Miami. How did he get assigned to the herd? The fact that they flew those guys, like that tells you that he can't be, he has to be close. Like, I know these NBA franchises have a lot of money, but why are they sending the G League team down to Miami just to work out with Khris Middleton if he's not close? He's got to be close.
I'm like assuming they flew commercial or something, right? Just like a bunch of tall, maybe they picked like shorter guys because the tall guys didn't want to fly commercial down or something like that. I'm guessing the herd guys didn't get to fly on the private jet. I don't know. We got to ask Eric to dig into that, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like a good thing. That usually is like the last step before you actually play basketball games, but until it happens, it's just talk, and sooner would be better than later. So we will see. What is the rest of the schedule this week? They have the Raptors on Tuesday, and then let's see, they have the Raptors on Tuesday, and then they don't have the Cavs until Saturday, and then the Pistons on Monday. So
I'm all in on Saturday, and if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be very emotional and upset. Saturday's the day.
By the way, I thought I heard people talking about like the Bucks schedule being super weird. I mean, they've only played like, is this going to be like the 5th or 6th back-to-back all year? It's like they really don't play many back-to-backs anymore. I've actually been kind of pleasantly surprised at how few they've played. And I think they were what, 4-1. I think they were 4-0 until they lost in Miami last week, which also feels kind of surprising that a team like the Bucks, which has had a penchant for resting Giannis in these back-to-backs over the past few years, that they've actually had a good record, considering they basically they're like, if you get the Bucks on a back-to-back, it's basically Jrue Holiday and Brook Lopez and cloud of dust. So I don't know. We will see. I mean, if they pull out the Raptors game, that would obviously be a really big win. As much as Toronto obviously has not been great shakes or anything like that. But I don't know. I know there were some jokes on Twitter today about which, after TJ McConnell and Gabe Vincent, which tiny random guy. Malachi Flynn was the only, like, he's like the only other guard on the roster who's small other than Fred VanVleet. So Malachi Flynn going for a career high would be the probably the most fitting trend to see carry over into that game, given the Bucks just get annihilated by random backup guards. But I don't know. I feel like we dodged some bullets from Fred VanVleet. I feel like Fred VanVleet, ever since Daddy VanVleet killed us after the birth of his child in the Eastern Conference Finals, it feels like Fred VanVleet saves good games for the Bucks, but he definitely had a lot of misses in the last game. So I'm gonna be holding my breath when Fred VanVleet takes shots tomorrow. He seems like the best candidate for little guy to punish the Bucks.
Well, the Bucks are 12 games over 500 and one game back in the loss column, but drew level 4.5 games back of the Boston Celtics. So they're back level with the Nets. And look, there's an opportunity there with Kevin Durant still going to be out for a few weeks as well. So the Bucks can pick up some wins, at least stay within some sort of touching distance. I don't know if they're going to catch the Celtics, but certainly try and stay ahead of the pack with the Nets and the Cavs and the Philadelphia 76ers as well. Also, check out the Game to Game podcast. You get a recap from around the NBA from all the local hosts in the network after the games are done. And you can just catch up with everything that's going on in the NBA. There's always plenty of games on. Any parting shots? Wednesday is a big day for me. I do some other basketball stuff here in Australia. And someone tweeted this meme that I wanted to bring up, Frank, because you'll see my attire is a little bit different when I'm working for ESPN. And someone tweeted this, Kane talking about the Bucks, Kane talking about any other team. And you have to see it on YouTube.
Wait, who tweeted this? Who came up with this?
I have to go back and have a look.
You got to go. Whoever came up with that needs some credit. But yeah, well, my main observation after the game on Twitter was that I thought the switching in kind of I think maybe started the late third, but I thought the switching was really important. I mean, we always talk about how, again, my view is always that Bobby Portis is the least problematic. Call it least problematic defensively when he's switching, just because he's so limited as a rim protector. And this is one of the downsides of Giannis being out, is that you get into a lot of these lineups where it is just Bobby out there because you can't play him and Brook 48 minutes, although it seems like Bud would probably like to. And I thought this is less about Bobby, but I mean, I thought the fact that, Miles Turner hit 5 threes, scored 30 points today. Also, like, just the way he shoots threes, they're like moon balls. He shoots them so high, they're aesthetically pleasing. But here's the thing: it's the thing that is always kind of like I found funny about Miles Turner. Like, the guy doesn't really like know how to post up effectively. He doesn't punish switches, at least not in my lifetime of watching him. And so I thought it was fitting that he was killing the Bucks on these pick and pops, or Brook Lopez would kind of hang down, whatever. He was splashing these threes, and then the Bucks were like, all right, we're just gonna switch. They took Brook out for a bit, and basically said to him, as well as I think Jalen Smith as well, and they're like, we don't really think you guys can hurt us. And sure enough, like, they made a couple attempts to throw the ball into those guys that were like deflected and stolen. And then another time Jrue was on the switch and Miles Turner like caught it and like kind of kept the ball above his head and sort of awkwardly threw it off the backboard and missed. And so essentially, I think that really kind of, given the way that Indiana was shooting the ball, I thought it kind of took some of the momentum out of what they were doing offensively, because the pick and pops of Turner are working well. We also saw obviously McConnell principally, like, in terms of pick and rolls. Bucks kind of fighting under screens, not really defending it too closely, but other guys as well. Those guys were hitting threes, and it just seemed like switching just kind of threw them for a bit of a loop. And again, without the ability to really punish the Bucks down low, it felt like that kind of changed the energy of the game a little bit, because it was such a like tennis match in terms of like, whoever could break serve, right? If you could get 2-3 stops in a row, that was like a huge move, something huge for your momentum, because the other team, probably wasn't going to stop you consistently. So yeah, that was that's my, random hashtag analysis comment for this game. But and I think that was the thing too. I think they started switching. I want to say they started switching a little bit more when Wes came in there for that brief period, just because of, Wes being, again, kind of more in that Jrue mold of like not tall, but kind of built like a little tank, and not a guy that like you can easily back down. So yeah. Hey, every once in a while, adjustments. Yes, Bud does make adjustments. Every coach does. Whenever everybody who says like coaches don't make adjustments, like they make adjustments. They may not be the right adjustments, but they usually do make actual adjustments. They're just not always always the easiest thing to pick up. But that one was pretty clear.
You mentioned the size, the rebounding there. One interesting stat as we wrap it up: second chance points, 18-0 in this game. And the Bucks actually only had 9 offensive rebounds. So 18 second chance points on 9 offensive rebounds is some pretty tidy work there from the Bucks.
Good.
So
it's about 2 points per 2 points per offensive rebound.
So credit to the Bucks and Pacers. Something to work on. That's not great stuff there on the glass.
By the way, so, I think Bobby Portis had another double-double, 21 points. Obviously was important hitting shots when the Bucks were trying to keep up. I think he also had I think he was the one that turned it over on the inbound at the end of the first quarter. I think the Bucks basically gave up. I think the Bucks gave up a 3 at the end of every quarter other than the fourth quarter. TJ McConnell might have been created all of them. At the end of the second quarter, he just blew by Javon Carter to kick out for a corner 3. At the end of the third quarter, he blew by George Hill to do the same, which is weird because, Javon and George, pretty engaged defenders, and just sort of like seem to be like caught sleeping. But at the end of that first quarter, they get a 3, and then the Bucks throw it away. I think it was Bobby threw it away to set up another 3. It was just like, dude, seriously, 6 points in the last like freaking 2 seconds of the first quarter, like not great. So yeah, we got Bucks. Seriously, the turnovers are bad. The turnovers are bad. But like Jrue had that period. Didn't he have like 3 straight turnovers in the last Miami game? Like just some of the turnover stuff, like it's just, guys, what are we doing here? But the backcourt turnovers, seriously, frickin' quit it, man. Like, just, I know we want to get out and push the ball up tempo and all that crap, especially, the transition has been struggling this year. But inbound the ball to a teammate, please. Please, that's my first request.
No, that's a fair request. We'll see. The good news is we only have to wait 24 hours thereabouts, under 24 hours, to see if they listen to Frank Madden on their trip north of the border. We'll have something after the game, post-game show, I suppose.
The Raptors, how many times did they turn over in Toronto last time? Like 25 times or something like that? Like I'm expecting a lot of frustration, but you know what, guys? Hope springs eternal. Hope springs eternal.
We'll speak to you after the game. The Bucks are 12 games over 500. They're looking for the big win number 29 tomorrow. Here's hoping we can talk about it.